Dear comrades, new and old friends, brothers and sisters in our common struggle for a more just living and an equal world. My name is Bojan Vulin and I salute you on behalf of the Movement of Socialists, a Marxist patriotic party that is a part of the government in Serbia. I also speak here as a voice of the freedom-loving Serbian nation, who were criminally attacked twice by the NATO alliance. First, during the bombing of the Republic of Srpska in Bosnia at 1994, and again in 1999, when NATO aggressors attacked Yugoslavia, when the entire Western world conspired against a small but brave and free country, aiming not only to destroy Serbia, but also to dismantle the international law, which at the time was on our side. However, the NATO aggression that began back then did not end with the end of military operations. We are still living with its daily consequences and renewed attacks. In Republic of Serbia and Republic of Srpska in Bosnia, particularly in the areas bombed by NATO, the past 3 decades have seen an epidemic of cancers, all types and for all ages. We are witnessing an inexplicable rise in rare and atypical cancers, as well as sudden increase in leukemia and lymphoma. According to many world top experts, this is direct consequences of NATO massive use of depleted uranium in its weaponry. This is not just our past, it is our ongoing daily reality. Every new cancer case, every family affected by this tragedy testifies to the long-term consequences of NATO aggression, consequences that will last for decades, even centuries. In Kosovo and Metohija, under NATO and Western protection, a continuous process of systematic persecution of Serbian people is underway. UN Resolution 1244, which ended conflict and recognized Serbian sovereignty over Kosovo, is totally ignored, and over 200,000 Serbian refugees are still waiting to return to their homes, while those who remain face extreme forms of discrimination and violation of all agreements, including the Brussels Agreement signed with the EU in 2012. In Kosovo and Metohija, with the West remaining silent, Serbs endure physical attacks and the denial of basic human rights, while institutional and ideological attacks on Serbian culture, historical and religious heritage continue. Today, Serbs in Kosovo are attacked, denied their rights, and see their culture, history, and churches threatened and attacked. This is not just a human rights issue. It is a system of apartheid supported and ignored by the West. At the same time, in Republic of Srpska, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we see a second wave of NATO lawlessness. Bosnia and Herzegovina is the only country in Europe governed by foreigners and UN. Under the false pretense of peace implementation, it is led by German politician Christian Schmidt, who unlawfully presents himself as UN High Representative, despite lacking any legitimate mandate from the UN Security Council. This unelected official is supported solely by the Western NATO powers and routinely violates the Dayton Peace Agreement by imposing anti-Serbian decisions, including issuing an order to arrest the President of Republic of Srpska for not recognizing his clearly illegitimate mandate. This practice is nothing more than a modern form of imperialist pressure masked as international community involvement. Those who point out this injustice and fight against it become targets of Western powers and their diplomatic pressures. A clear example is the president and founder of our Movement of Socialist, Aleksandar Vulin, very experienced politician and well-known patriot in the free world. He has held the highest offices in the government of Serbia, from Minister of Labor, Defense, Interior, and the head of intelligence, and Deputy Prime Minister. It is he whom the United States sanctioned with fabricated accusations, from drug trafficking to suppressing democratic freedoms. The real reason, however, is that he does not serve their interests. Instead, he openly advocates cooperation with the free world. His meeting with leaders who oppose Western imperialism, Putin, Xi Jinping, Maduro, Lukashenko, made this clear. Because of such independent policy, he is marked as a threat because he demonstrated that there is alternative to NATO submission is possible. NATO is the weapon, but the hand that pulls the trigger is the ideology of Euro-Atlanticism. The concept of Euro-Atlanticism defines the strategic partnership between Europe and North America, with NATO as its most prominent institution. Euro-Atlanticism enforces Western liberal policies and promotes a rational presumption of superiority of Western civilization and its achievement all over others. This ideology encourages historical revisionism, redefining the past in order to shape a future according to Western standards. Euro-Atlanticism sometimes bombs and sometimes destroys nations from within. There is no meaningful difference between military and internal aggression, which we all know by the name of color revolutions, who are always supported and directed by the West. Often, internal aggression is followed by military intervention with the ultimate goal of total subjugation and stripping a nation of its freedom and sovereignty. The latest example of Euro-Atlantic aggression is the attempt of color revolution in Serbia, referred to in the West as student protests against corruption. The truth is quite opposite. A small segment of misled youth in Serbia, along with pro-EU and pro-NATO opposition parties, is manipulated by corrupt elites from the education system, judiciary, prosecution, along with elements of Serbia deep state, educated, funded, and promoted by globalist networks, financed by Soros, USAID, and other branches of globalism. The plan was to use a tragic incident as a pretext for creating division and internal conflict in order to overthrow the legitimate government in the streets. The real aim was the destruction of Serbia, the only country in Europe that has not imposed sanctions on Russia regarding the Eastern conflict and that insists on its military neutrality with no intention to ever joining NATO. The silver lining is that the Serbian people have already experienced Euro-Atlantic color revolutions, such as the coup of 5th October in 2000, when many in Serbia naively believed Western promises but end up with total economic devastation, the sale of state assets, the breakup of state union with Montenegro, and the loss of access to the sea. The Republika Srpska lost many of its competencies, which it had under the Dayton Agreement. In Kosovo and Metohija, independence was illegally declared to legalize NATO aggression and crimes, allowing persecution and terror against Serbs still living there to continue unchallenged. This is why this last attempt of Euro-Atlantic color revolution in Serbia is doomed to fail. It cannot only fools who benefit from such a system. The most vulnerable to Euro-Atlantic lies is the younger generation, shaped by social media, who do not remember life under the bombs and NATO-compliant regimes. The military force of NATO is the most visible, but without Euro-Atlanticism, it is just piles of steel on the fields. The presence of Euro-Atlanticism as the ideological and staffing foundation of NATO leadership is a constant presence in any society, just as harmful as the pellet uranium scattered across Serbian land. This ideological infection more deeply and permanently erodes national identity than any military movement ever could. If we speak only about NATO bases, weapons, and military plans, we are addressing the consequences, not the cause. The root lies in the imperialist, racist, supremacist, liberal ideology that corrupt essence and criminal practice of Euro-Atlanticism. This is why, when Parliament in the Euro-Atlantic world debate rearmament and rise of military financial expenditures, we must understand that this is not just a discussion about budget, or wherever more or less money should be spent. This is a distraction from the real objective. The current rearmament of the Euro-Atlantic world is not about restocking emptied warehouse. It is preparation for a new Great War. a war in which even if robots and drones do the fighting, and NATO soldiers become soulless, robotic, artificial intelligence death machines, there will still be innocent victims. Lives and families destroyed. The final price our society will pay is the freedom of every person and every nation that dares to think differently. That is why we hope that awareness of Euro-Atlanticism as the driving force of NATO's machinery will reach ordinary people in the world, in the West especially, people who are fundamentally good, honest and hardworking, but who have become victims of systematic disinformation. Thank you for the opportunity to address to such esteemed gathering and the founders of this platform, and to speak not only on behalf of the Movement of Socialists, but also to convey the message of the Serbian people. Especially meaningful because through our own tragedy of NATO aggression, the pellet uranium, and experience with color revolution, we most clearly reveal the true nature of the global Euro-Atlantic threat. As a nation that has sacrificed countless lives on the altar of freedom, it is our duty to warn the world about the danger of Euro-Atlanticism, the ideological backbone of NATO war machine, while there is still time to save the future of the mankind.